Hey folks, Richard here. Yesterday we had the monthly meeting for the Microsolidarity Network, and we heard from seven different presenters about their communities, the community building work that they're doing. So today I'm going to share with you these short presentations from the seven different groups, and I'll put links to these projects into the video description so you can catch up with more of the detail, because these are just very, very quick presentations to give you a taste of what's happening in the Microsolidarity Network. If you'd like to join us, we have a call every month and you can find out about that. Also, I'll put information in the description. Okay, enjoy these presentations.
So yeah, for the first three projects in this round, we'll have Denver Shared Ground by Drew, and Vivand Community by Diana, and Intentional Society by James. So in that order. How's that sound, guys? Is that all right? Yeah? You're good to start, Drew? Cool. Alrighty, go ahead, and we'll, maybe Bernard, if you spotlight Drew while he's talking, then maybe that's helpful.
And maybe even spotlight Caroline, who's also here with me there. Hi, I'm Drew. I am coming to you live from somewhere in New Jersey, and Caroline is actually in the shared ground space right now. I figure I will do a little bit of just the details, and then we can just kind of go back and forth, Caroline, with what's exciting. Just really quick, we are in Denver. We is a group of social permaculture practitioners that got invited into a space that's a historic Presbyterian church. And it was purchased by a real estate company, and the guy leading that is kind of zany and wants to keep the spiritual nature of the space. And he brought us in sort of to consult. And what we've realized is we want to start a church, because the space right now is zoned as a church, and that means we can legitimately occupy it. We've been sort of squatting in it and working out of it, and doing some events and things. And we are about to enter into that process. We're about to incorporate a church, sign a lease. And for the next year, until zoning changes, we would occupy the space. And we're very excited to keep the spiritual nature of it, and bring the spiritual practices in without a denomination, and then see how the political or the corporate structure of a church can be beneficial to creating a space of belonging. And the microsolidarity framework has been very interesting to us for a long time, and we call crews pods, and we've been experimenting with creating pods and sort of noticing that we have a congregation. And now there's this sort of like a space has presented itself to our community. We just had our first big event, inviting a bunch of people in to get excited about the space. And it feels like there's a lot of liftoff energy. So yeah, that's sort of the basis. Maybe Caroline, you want to just, if you have anything, speak into the space.
Yeah, I think that was a decent overview. And my background is in cooperative development, so it's kind of a unique project to develop to leverage the church model, which here in the US creates a lot of leeway for what we can do. Leverage it, but build it out as a co-op, build it out in a very cooperative manner. So the congregation, that word has utility in the church context as well as, of course, in the microsolidarity context. So there's a really interesting overlap with that. And really everything that we want to do here is going to be based on relationship within our congregation, based on initiative within our congregation and responsive to those initiatives. That level of kind of participatoriness is something that we value and we think is part of building toward a regenerative and resilient future. And that's really why we're coming together, is to build resilience, inner and outer, that kind of fractal between individual and interpersonal and, family and community, and then all the way up to society. How can we build authentic resilience, which includes spiritual practices, it includes upskilling, it includes relationship work. So yeah, I'm really excited for borrowing from the wisdom in the microsolidarity space and being plugged in with all of you fellow practitioners to see what we can do together.
I think that's our time. I just want to say I'm going to drop a document into the chat that was a harvest of our first kind of community gathering, and it has our like agenda and pitch. So there's lots of other information in there to really get a sense. So I guess that's it. Ta-da.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Drew and Caroline. That was wonderful. Yeah, thanks also for going first and starting us off. So yeah, everyone, if you want to just take 30 seconds, jot down any ideas, thoughts, questions you have, and yeah, rooms. So 3 minutes for Diana. Take it away.
I'm really happy that it's working now, so I can just scroll down. So yeah, Blivande is a social company and an organization that has different pillars. We're located in Sweden and Stockholm in a big red house, and also have a container square next to it that we're developing. Our 4 main pillars are a co-working space, right now self-driven makerspace that has just transformed governance into sociocracy, the container square, and an event business, and one organization called Norden that makes events from members for members. It's kind of each year something is coming to the mix, so I think there will be more pillars coming. Here's a few pictures so you get a little bit of feel. Some days are full, some days are empty, but we have gallery openings, a lot of events where the public is involved. The community in the house is quite active. Right now we have 40 members in the makerspace, 20 members in the co-working space, and about another 20 in the container square. So we're now 90. The level of engagement is super different. Most engaged are probably the people in the square and in the makerspace. And the co-working space serves a little bit of as a jumping board into participation. And it's also the business that subventions the memberships in the makerspace and ateliers and in the container square. Sometimes members give courses through a platform called Blivande Academy. More pictures. I thought it would just say a lot more than words, and then answer questions later. People are having kids, maybe that's also happening in your organizations. There's art. We are one of our ancestors. I will come to this. Like, Blivande is nothing that was created out of the blue. And I would actually add Microsolidarity to the threads. This is an old presentation. It's coming from Norden, this organization that makes events in the evening, the Borderland, which is the Nordic burn. It's related to Burning Man, but it's very decentralized. Edge Riders has a history in it. Some inspiration from the New European Bauhaus. Institute for X is a giant container village in Aarhus, Denmark, and then Stockholm Harbor. This is our house 100 years ago, so it's very cute. Oh, I cannot see it. This is how a representation of our online forum. We're both an online and an offline community, and we talk a lot through discourse and Discord both. Decision makings and longer discussions are held on discourse on our forum, and day-to-day stuff is now since this month's Discord. We also have a few tools that a group developed for participation-driven organizations that distribute money. I don't know, maybe some of you have heard about co-budget. It's an evolution of the initial tool that was created at Borderland and distributes money, or like a budget is distributed to members and then they can take decisions where the money goes to. Yeah, I don't have so much else to say, and I'm looking forward to the session with questions.
All right, well, I'll say hello, friends. Good to see you. I'm James. Intentional Society is an online face-to-face community for people to grow into their biggest and best selves, grow to be the people that they want to be, do in line with their values, and be in right relationship to others, to themselves, and to the world. So we've been meeting for about 1 year and 3 quarters now, or a little short of 2 years now of meeting weekly. And we do a lot of relational practices, things like authentic relating, circling, collective presencing, with a developmental perspective, adult development psychology, or really just simply the fact that we can grow. People keep growing in complexity all of their lives. And we do all of that inside of a warm and supportive community container. So I am excited about a recent transition where we've kind of expanded self-identity a little bit from we're this weekly call, that's what we are, that's what this thing is, to Intentional Society has a weekly community practice session, and that's where we do our relational practices, but it also has other things, starting to allow for members and folks to just kind of do midweek events, gather together, some sort of bubbly like events, open crews. We don't have a lot of crewing going on. We're still fairly small, and we are more congregationally oriented as a community overall. And yeah, so that's what we're doing. And as mentioned in the chat, there's a intentionalsociety.org is the website, and you can find our weekly newsletter or orientation calls or just more information there. So that's all. Thanks.
Thanks so much, James. Wonderful to hear from you. Great. So that's James with Intentional.
Okay, so I just want to caveat that I'm a little bit unwell and my voice is a little bit, but so I hope you can forgive me. Cool. So tell me when to start, so I know that I'm not taking up too much space.
Oh, when to stop?
Yeah, right. You can hear, right? You can start.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Get really cushy and close. Okay, cool. So my name is Nicole. I'm the founder of an initiative project called Primal Gathering. And this project was born out of the insight that most people struggle to kind of take care of themselves. And as a consequence of that, a lot of things are occurring, like the negligence around our environmental landscape. In short, Primal Gathering is an environmentally, socially, and psychologically regenerative gathering where we basically create contexts where people learn tools to support their own self-sustenance whilst regenerating and reforesting land. Our mission is essentially to restore both people, forests, and ecosystems, eventually all over the world, because you have to be ambitious. And our vision is to make all events regenerative in nature. This is our business version, part of our challenges, which I can speak to whoever afterwards, which essentially is doing the same thing, but with businesses to support them doing and creating better things and moving more slowly to have more intentionality for the future. A philosophy that has underpinned everything that we've done, and if you've heard maybe the podcast that I did with Rich quite recently, is one called community as practice. I won't go into so much detail in this call, but essentially it's a roadmap that supports wholesome character building, and facilitates essentially the right conditions to support cultures of belonging in mutual care and respect. And primal gathering essentially is one of those contexts. So we support people embodying the values that they wish to see in the world, to foster and permeate a culture of belonging, and to create the right conditions to foster empathy with ourselves, each other, and essentially also the natural world. Our events are about this: education, music, art, regeneration, connection. And what we've done so far is essentially planted like 2,000 something trees, another 1,500 this November. If you're free, you should come. Done a lot of natural building, raised beds, vegetable gardens, etc. But the way we work is we work with the landowner first. So we try to understand like what is the landowner's needs, how can we support them? Often landowners are really like time poor or resource poor. So how can we support them get the best out of their land, whilst also teaching our participants something that they're really excited to know about. In accordance, it can be something as like authentic relating, also permaculture, hand printing, reforestation, whatever it is that, you know, sings to both the participants' desires and also the landowners. This is just like a very brief, I won't go into this in detail, but this is kind of like our little holistic regenerative model in terms of the components that we like to feed during each of our gatherings that support this kind of sense of culture of belonging and a true sense of like real intimacy that comes as a consequence of it. And I didn't know that we were doing this part separately, so I can go into this maybe a little bit, but basically by trying to be a regenerative organization from the inside out, one of the things that we're trying to counter is the fact that most festivals and gatherings kind of base it on exchange. So you get a free ticket if you facilitate or you do this X, Y, and Z. And we're trying to pay all our contributors regardless, even if it starts at a symbolic rate. Ideally, we want to contribute towards everyone fairly. But obviously, if you contribute and pay everyone fairly, the prices of the things that you create increase, and therefore you deal with accessibility challenges. So that's probably one of the bigger ones. The second one I can go more detail in the call, because we have like two identities. We have our community steward owned initiative where people from all over the world want to replicate what we've done locally in their local countries, which makes it feel much more community and steward owned. And we also have this B2B arm to support like businesses with team building. So we kind of have this a bit of this like identity challenge. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Nicole. Something that I would like to have done before is to invite everyone to unmute themselves and give a bit of a woohoo.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. And next up will be Lisa Marie, occurring in New York City.
Woohoo!
Thanks for the hype, the pre-hype. Yeah, so I'm excited to share with you all. So this is still an idea, and so I'm sharing an idea, not something that actually exists really yet. But I'm really interested in neighborhoods, and with the changes that are happening in the world with like climate change and inequity, we need resilience in corridors. And especially now that urban tech solutions are growing. So something that I've learned in working with different communities that are working to combat various problems, that they have challenges. And the challenges that I've seen are in decision-making, competing interests if they have outside funding, program design, project management, and raising and retaining capital. So as I started to think about this, I developed a framework, which I'm still working on, but I'm calling a strategy for shared prosperity. And on the left is an embedded model of where you have to start with the self, exploring the self, and then work together to grow, and then really share our knowledge, because without sharing knowledge, we can't really work together. And once all of these components are kind of together, that helps you create change, which is in the middle. And once you have change, then you're able to advance in your career or your community you have alignment of your spirit, you have awareness of different technologies and how to use it to your advantage. And then there's abundance, which is collective wealth. And so this section, the middle and the right are bi-directional, that also when you do these 4 things, you also create change. So with that, I would say that's like my theory. And then the actual like implementation, I want to create a studio. And this studio will use that methodology plus my work experience as a strategist and researcher to design and invest in community-driven projects. So this project, still a work in progress, but I guess it would probably be a mix between a crew and a congregation. The geographic focus would be neighborhoods or corridors and emerging and frontier economies. The different solutions would fall under those buckets that I mentioned. And then there would be like a core team, like how in basketball you have your starting 5, and then maybe there would be people who sub in to help with the ideas that we either create internally or externally. The funding, I'm thinking the funding would come from work that I'm doing now, and then putting micro investments into these projects. And then another component is the people who go through the studio will give back either through their skills, money, or time. I'm inspired by various theories or practices that exist because of their focus on being a collective. I see this as like a 4-phase project. The first phase is where I was gaining expertise, credentials, and experience through my education. 2007 is when I graduated college, and then 2019, I graduated from my PhD, and then 2021 was kind of like when I finished, I would say like my work. And then now this phase is thinking of implementing this in New York and Haiti, audience building, networking, experimenting, and then moving into 2030, like doing sprints and builds. And then the final phase would be scaling and sharing this in different communities and maybe indigenous and communities in Botswana. So yeah, that's kind of like where I am, still working on this. And I'm happy I had this opportunity to share because it really forced me to kind of like start thinking about this.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Unmuted.
Yeah.
Great.
Yay.
Awesome. Okay, over to you, Rick.
Okay. We have a 20% chance that I get through this without my son busting in, but we'll give it a shot. Medley. So I'm Rick. I'm one of 3 people. Many of you know Chris and Ananta as well, who have started a third space secular church type thing in Berlin. What drives us? Well, we think that most people need more people in their life. And we think that space and physical space as a constant in one's life is a vector for engaging in community. And why the name medley? Well, a medley is a beautiful collection that highlights the individual. Wouldn't be possible without the individuals together to create the collective, and also the individuals thrive within the collective setting. What are we up to right now? Well, our approach, ultimately we have a space that can house a congregation size. We are starting off not with a membership model, but with a contribution and participation model, and aiming to go through a few cycles of getting to know one another, running through different uses of space, different rituals, in order to settle around some rhythms and some tempos before we put a hard line between in and out. We're starting with 2 major work streams, let's say. The first is as a third space, as I mentioned. So our space is beautiful. It's almost over the top cathedral-like beautiful, inspired very much by churches. And the fact that being in somewhere that is aesthetically opening and communal changes the position and the disposition of the people there and the attitude. I can share some photos soon. So we use this space effectively as a community center for literary salons, listening parties, breathwork, all sorts of good stuff. That will be a slow burn. The thing that we're starting with, that we're super excited with, is the residency program. Our idea is that we will seed the core of the community with new people through this residency program. So as opposed to new people joining at the fringes, coming to a party, getting a bit tipsy, or just having a nice time with somebody, and then slowly feeling like they can come closer, we will inject 12 new people right into the center of this place, spending time there day in, day out, working on something that they think will personally bring step change in their life. So we've just announced these residencies, and the 3 minutes are up. Thanks, Bernie. Okay, let me summarize. Our residencies are different in the sense that we want variety of everything: age, stage of life, discipline. And we think that in this beautiful variety, if you get those microsolidarity principles going, that you can start to be more of yourself and more of yourselves, and that's where the magic happens. Yeah, that's Medley.
Woohoo!
Hey.
Can I hear from everybody a little woohoo for Medley?
Yeehaw!
Thanks, Rick. There's Jonas here. Yeah, go ahead, Jonas.
Okay. Hello. I'm Jonas. I'm based in Vienna, and we started a group called Der Knotenpunkt Wien, which is German for the node Vienna, about 2.5 years ago, and it got birthed out of a desire to do some good in the world and bring about some positive change, and we didn't know how to do that. So we thought a good way to start to learn how to do that was to have a physical space where we could meet, where we could host events and just experiment. And we started it under the label of a social lab, basically, like an experimentational space. And now it's 2.5 years in. We've done a lot of events, and we started with 4 friends basically that just got together, and in the beginning there were some other people, and there were some people left and some other people joined, and now we're 8 of us that are holding it together, and that are taking care of that space, organizing a feminist education festival once a year that runs over 2 years in October and November, 2 years, 2 weeks. And that's like the main thing we do. And then there's some small other things in the realm of personal development and community building and political education throughout the year. And it's been interesting because in the beginning, all of us had very different ideas what we wanted to do in this space. And we just got together and it worked somehow. And we paid for the rent ourselves, and between all of us, it kind of worked out somehow. We got to some points where there was some conflict around okay, what is it that we actually do? And because we were really winging it from the beginning, we didn't have a good structure. We didn't have what Microsolidarity would call a minimum viable structure. That made for a lot of frustrations and points where it became really apparent that people had different ideas, and we didn't have a good process how to deal with that. So the past half year, I would say, was the process of dealing with that and kind of starting to transition into a more structured way of doing things, and kind of revisiting, okay, what is it that we want to do here, and how do we go about it? And okay, 3 minutes up. Yeah, that was quick. Yeah, happy to chat more. Just one more sentence, maybe. The vision is to kind of become a hub for people to meet from the Viennese scene of people that are engaged in civil society, and new projects to form, and be like a resource and dating pool and like connecting people with resources and yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeehaw!
Thank you, Jonas. All right. Perfect. Okay. I just want to invite everyone to unmute and give us all a woohoo for all the presenters and and all of us and all the amazing work that's going on. Lots of love. Anyone who wants to stay around and dance it out with us, Ernie, maybe you can play us a tune.